Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Zone Blitz. As always, I'm Vince Miller, joined by my co-host Ashton Overholt. It's been we took last week off, but we're back. Ashton, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. A little under the weather last week, but yeah, feeling better and ready to go again.
All right. Today we're going to do our State of the Program pod about Georgia. Ashton is a Georgia fan, as our listeners well know. So I guess I'll just start with kind of the newest stuff. I mean, what are you hearing about spring ball, practice, spring game? What is the newest? What are the tidbits you can give us as an inside Georgia fan?
So it wouldn't be a real Georgia team with a little bit of quarterback controversy, right? So let's just start there. I think the spring game was 2 weeks ago. Georgia's spring game was, and Stetson Bennett is back again for his 15th year in college. He is an entrenched starter. Most people would believe, but there is an element out there that think that Carson Beck, who has had a terrific spring by all accounts, he's blown people away. Carson Beck is really kind of closing the gap there on Stetson Bennett, causing a little bit of more controversy, as if we needed any more. But during the spring game, it did feel like he popped. He really did. Carson Beck has had a phenomenal spring game included. He can make more big-time throws than Stetson Bennett can. He made a lot of really good decisions that we saw. And I mean, Carson Beck, he was highly rated, coming out of high school, right? And then he's kind of been under the radar. Like he wasn't, he's been in the program for 2 years now, 2 full years. Mm-hmm. And so he's not a new face. He's not someone that, people are still buzzing about. He's kind of sat there for a little bit, and now he's making a reappearance. And I think that's probably the interesting thing. And for a Georgia fan, that's probably the thing to keep your eye on, is just how that goes quarterback mm-hmm. controversy wise. Like, Kirby said after the game that the team knows. Kirby doesn't actually care about the performance. I just want to point this out. Kirby really cares about how the team is rallying around, and the team has been with Stetson Bennett, for a while now, right? Yeah. So is there a real controversy? Maybe not. Is it something to keep your eye on? I think you should, because he clearly outplayed him. And whenever you have a quarterback outplaying people on national TV, that gets a little interesting for the coaching staff.
Sure. So like how, because I do think there's an element where the team will know, like if Beck or whoever is clearly outplaying Bennett, sure, they will know, right? Like, yeah. But also there is something to, like, they want a national title with Stetson. Like how much do you think Stetson has to be outplayed by this fall even to actually lose the job? Or even maybe another question, and this might be more realistic, is split snaps or give a few meaningful snaps to Beck or whoever.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. It's a question that no one really knows, to be honest with you. No one actually has an exact answer as to what it would take for Bennett to lose his job, because we all thought he should have lost it last year. We thought he had it last year, right? Mm-hmm. And that sentiment is still there a little bit with some Georgia fans, myself included, that feel that there are others there that are maybe more talented. Mm-hmm. But I think the leash got a lot longer for Stetson Bennett. Winning a national championship will do that for you. So who knows? The correct answer there is who really knows. But I imagine that it's going to be a considerable leash for Stetson Bennett. Mm-hmm. I think Stetson Bennett, the week 1 starter. I think he's probably the starter for most, if not all, of the year. I can't imagine a scenario. No one on Georgia's schedule is really going to be able to beat Georgia, I don't think. Like, even though Georgia's not as good as they were last year, I don't really see any true competitors in the regular season schedule. They could get upset. That's possible, but they should win their games. They should win their games, and you're not going to be able to bench a Heisman, or sorry, not a Heisman, a national championship quarterback if you're still continuing to win your games.
Right. That makes sense. So maybe we're just moving on to some of the other positions. Obviously, you lost Jermaine Burton, the receiver, to Alabama.
Mhm.
And we all know about the insanely loaded tight end room. You have two extremely proven guys and two guys who were both like the top guy in their class or close to it, one including a true freshman, I believe. I can't remember all the names, but I just know it's ridiculously loaded. Do you think, like, how much do you expect tight ends to play outside this year? Do you think there will be receivers that can replace Burton? It's all kind of related because I know it's different positions, but also they kind of do the same thing in some ways.
Correct. No, they do. I think the tight end group is so good. Like we haven't really even talked about Eric Gilbert came back and in his game caught 2 touchdown passes. He figures to be a force this year for Georgia receiving. There's talk of splitting him out wide, not always keeping him in tight as a tight end, but actually playing him as kind of a receiver role a little bit. So that's interesting. Losing Burton, this sounds biased. I don't think Georgia will really miss him that much. That sounds really bad. I understand how that sounds, but you look at like Kyrus Jackson is back, right? A.D. Mitchell who had the really good title game, right? The really good playoff game is improving. He's the guy. He's the number 1 receiver for Georgia. And I think he is wide receiver 1. That's without question. You'll have Brock Bowers back, who's probably the best tight end in the country, who really gets a lot of touches. Bowers gets a lot of touches outside, not just in a tight end role, but actually like a lot of the wide receiver screens that would be going to someone like Jermaine Burton. Bowers catches a ton of those. Bowers catches a ton of little screens and stuff underneath. So I really don't. I think Georgia has a lot of depth. Like outside of the names that we've already mentioned, you can also throw in. Yeah, just Arian Smith is coming back from injury, who is, he was like, I think the fastest man in his class, 2 years ago. So they have a lot of elite speed, and really good young talent there. Ladd McConkey, another name that we didn't really talk about that much, has also had a pretty solid year last year in spot duty. So Jermaine Burton leaving, it hurts because he went to Alabama. That's why it hurts. But outside of that, is it a huge loss? No. Like someone was going to go from that. Someone was always going to transfer out. It happened to be him. You hate to see him go, especially there. But yeah, so not a huge. I don't think Georgia fans are bemoaning the fact that the tight end group alone, Georgia has 4 tight ends that could start for most people, 4 of them. And yeah, I think Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers might have been the lowest recruited out of all those. So they're loaded. Oscar Delp is the freshman that had a really good spring as well, and he kind of looks like Bowers even. They're kind of like the same guy. Big kids that can just fly. But so I think from skill position, Georgia's done a good job at kind of catching up to the rest of college football at the perimeter positions. I think they have really as deep of a tight end receiver room as anyone does right now. And I think Georgia fans in general feel pretty good about that. I think Georgia fans feel better about the offense, even with Stetson Bennett, than they have in years past. I think this could be one of the better offensive years for Georgia.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any concern about the offensive line at all? And am I correct in thinking that Amarius Mims came back like out of the portal? Is that right?
He did. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Amarius Smith, former 5-star number 1 tackle, I believe, in his class. I think he was. He had entered the portal, and then I think he spent just a couple of weeks in there, and then recommitted to Georgia. And with the so I don't think this will actually. I don't know if that means a whole lot for this year. He wasn't getting much playing time, but I do think that it's nice to have that. Depth is key. We talk about depth a lot, and yeah, Georgia will have some to replace there. Georgia will have a little bit of maybe a little uncertainty with Lamar leaving. But I think Georgia has guys there that are kind of going to step up and step into that role a little bit. Broderick Jones really looks like he'll be stepping into like that next elite left tackle role. So yeah, I think overall offense, Georgia fans feel good. The running backs are, as good as always. They're no problem there. Just kind of next man up mentality. After losing James Cook and Samir White from this past year. So yeah, I don't think really worries there, like barring cluster injuries or something. Like I think I'm optimistic. I'm really optimistic for Georgia's offense this year.
Sure. So that leaves the defense. Obviously, you guys lost about 19 first-round picks or so. Well, is this just like plug in the next 5-star and it'll be fine? Or are there some legit concerns on the defensive side this year?
So it's not going to be as good. Like the defense isn't going to be as good, but they could still be the best defense in college football. Like that's the truth. Nolan Smith is huge. Just a really good edge rusher that has experience and is just a leader. That's a big deal. I think losing all the linebackers, that hurt. I think like when you have, Quay Walker and Kobe Dean, Channing Tindall is also gone. Like it's hard to lose that many and just be like okay with it all because of just the experience they had. That was really unique. But there's going to be some young guys that are going to kind of try to step into that place. Small Mondon is one guy, former 5-star. I mean, like most of these guys are 5-stars. Yeah, like we're not kidding ourselves here, but like he'll be one of them. Jamon Dumas Johnson, a young kid that is really like kind of flashed. He's maybe not as highly ranked, maybe not the name that people expect to see for the next Georgia linebacker, but he's been playing really well, and I think he might end up starting at one of the middle linebacker positions. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see who all starts for the defense. But Jalen Carter's still there.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith, we talked about Nolan Smith. They're still there. Those are first-round draft picks probably. So, and that's just in your line. So you're going to have a good defensive line, and you'll probably have a pretty good secondary. Keely Ringo, the famous Keely Ringo, right? He's just a sophomore now. So I think he's a redshirt sophomore. But yeah, like he's back again, right? And he will probably be cornerback number 1. So it's going to take a step back. There's no question. You can't expect to hold people to 4 points a game or whatever. It wasn't that, but I think it was like 10 or 11. You're not going to be able to do that again. That's not going to happen. People will be able to run the ball occasionally. That probably will happen, but it's not going to be a big drop off. It's not going to be a big drop off. It's not going to be special like it was where you can just win a championship behind it, like it was last year. But it will still be really good. Probably the best in the SEC and a chance to be one of the best nationally as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about this upcoming season, just schedule-wise a little bit. Just kind of looking over Georgia's schedule. The big non-conference game is Oregon, of course, opening weekend. Is that a true home game or is that a neutral site for Georgia?
Neutral site. That one's in Atlanta. Yeah.
Okay, so it will essentially be a Georgia home game.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
We'll see. But then Samford and Kent State are the other non-conference, as well as Georgia Tech. And then your draw from the West. Let's see, Auburn as always, and Mississippi State. Yeah. Yep. So you got to feel like pretty good about your conference schedule at least. How do you feel about your schedule as a whole?
So this is interesting. Like I'm a Georgia fan, and we don't know how to deal with success. Like we've never had this an off season. It's been great, but that's the question. Is like, what do you like? How do you approach next year? Like I've never done this before. Like I don't know. Like what's my expectation here? Like am I going to be mad if we go 10-2? Like where do we fit in? And then I looked at the schedule, right? Because I was thinking what is success for us? Yeah. Then you go look at the schedule, and Georgia's going to be favored in all of these games.
Yeah.
Georgia is going to be probably a multiple score favorite in almost all of these games. Maybe excluding Tennessee and Oregon, maybe. But like Georgia doesn't really have, they don't have they're avoiding LSU and Alabama, right, from the
Yeah.
West here. And the non-conference Oregon under a new coach, first year head coach, it's Dan Lanning, but it's not maybe as scary as Oregon is when they're experienced and rolling, like
Mhm.
under a actual, coaching staff that's been there and established. So you kind of feel good about the Oregon game. So I mean, Georgia can go 12-0 again this year. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's where Georgia fans get like a little like, I don't know if we should be quite this optimistic, but I think Georgia will win the East again.
Mhm.
I think the gap in the East right now is fairly large between them and someone else. Tennessee maybe is the second place team, and we'll get into that maybe in some future pods about like where these conferences are. But Florida is clearly in disarray, or at least last year they were, and now they're just rebuilding under a new coach.
Mhm.
Kentucky is steady as always, but they haven't really proven that they have the top end ceiling
Mhm.
to go
Right.
against Georgia, right, and take the East. So, like, who should Georgia fans be scared of outside of Tennessee deciding to have just an unbelievable offense? And the answer is I don't know. Like, I don't really know who to be scared of right now.
Yeah, and if just looking at the schedule even a little more closely, Florida and Tennessee are both home games.
Well,
We mentioned.
Florida's always a neutral site game.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the Jacksonville. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, there's that one. Your toughest true road game is probably Kentucky or Mississippi State, maybe
yeah.
South Carolina if they go crazy. But that's any loss that Georgia has this year will be considered a significant upset, I believe.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no question about it. I think Georgia might be kind of flying under the radar a little bit nationally, like from a national perspective, where everyone just they see all the first rounders leave, and like just assume that like they can't be good again next year. But like just looking at the players, Georgia's going to be able to out any of these teams,
Yeah.
like a decent margin. So yeah, if can they win the East again and go play Alabama again, like I think it's a decent opportunity. But I want to say how impressive that is. Like to be able to have a historic year and lose a ton of just generational talent, like the best defensive line that we've seen in college football in a long time. You lost that. You lost all of them,
Mhm.
and you're going to be able to be expected to repeat. Like you're going to be hugely favored in almost every game, and expected to repeat from the SEC East again and go play Alabama in the SEC championship. And I just want to say that like that's hard to do. That's
Mhm.
hard to do. And in defense of Kirby Smart, like I've been hugely critical of Kirby Smart from time to time. You're aware of that. Like I hate how he handles quarterback situations, but there's no doubt that he's handled his roster very well from a management perspective. That's there, the depth is there. They're just going to they're going to kind of reload, and it sounds boring, but it's be true. Like they're going to be coming for the East and the SEC again next.
Yeah. All right, your April 25th prediction. Where does Georgia's season end next year? Do they make the title game again? Do they win the title again? Make the playoff? What do you think? Right now. Obviously it's April 25th.
Yeah, they're not getting past. They're not going to win the SEC. They can win the East. I think 11-1 or 12-0 is. I think that's not unreasonable. It's not
Yeah.
unreasonable to 11-1 or 12-0 with a chance to beat Alabama and go to the playoff.
Mhm.
You put yourself in a great position if you do that. I mean, that's a great opportunity to have, but I don't think they get Alabama. For me, feeling next year wrapped, like I hope they're able to next year without that special defense. So it's probably where they're the second best team in the and one of the four best in the country. But I push the playoff next.
Okay. Yeah. So just in case anybody did not hear that, it was Ashton was breaking up a little bit there. His prediction is to not make the playoff. Is that correct?
Correct. I think one of the four best teams
Yeah.
in the one of the four best teams, but not a play. If that makes sense, I think they go down to
Yeah.
Alabama and don't end up making the playoff. even though they like on the field they could probably beat most of the teams in the country. I don't think Georgia gets in the playoff.
Okay. All right. Any more thoughts on Georgia before we move on here?
I'm just excited to be here, man. I'm just very happy at that place. Like we could lose, a couple games next year. Still good. Like I'm happy. I've got my championship. I don't need much more. I'm good for a while.
You say that now. We'll see.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
No, I know what you mean. I feel like as a Cubs fan, I'm still kind of cruising on 2016, and it's a little different because I don't care quite as much about baseball as I do college football. But There is something about that where that one championship that was you were waiting your whole life for, like that's something special. Like it has to be more special than Alabama's 2017 title, or like it's just another one,
Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on a little bit to just we don't normally talk NFL, but the NFL draft is this week, and turns out college football players are the ones getting drafted in the NFL, and we are a college football podcast, so I guess that's how it relates a little bit. Trayvon Walker, the Georgia defensive end / defensive tackle, is now the odds-on favorite to be the number one pick. What do you think? Like, what's your perspective on this as a Georgia fan? Obviously, Jordan Davis was like the big name guy all season long. That'll happen when you're 350 pounds and move as well as he does.
Right.
And Georgia's probably likely to have 3 first-round defensive linemen selected. Trayvon Walker, like, do you feel like he was the best of the bunch? Like, does this make sense to you?
Okay. I love Trayvon Walker, but like he was the 4th best defensive lineman for Georgia this year.
Jalen Carter was better too, you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. No doubt. Like, and that's not, by the way, that's not slanderous or anything. Like Jalen Carter might go number 1 overall next year.
Yeah.
Like of all the ones in that line that I thought would go number 1 overall, Jalen Carter was it.
Yeah.
Trayvon Walker, I understand he measured well at the combine, and he's a great kid, no doubt. It's a little concerning that, like, he was able to feast off of not ever getting double teamed because Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Devontae Wyatt, 3 other first-round picks were taking up all the double teams and taking up all the attention and taking up all the running back assignments. They never went to Trayvon Walker. Like he was never getting chipped coming off the edge,
Yeah.
And he often had a lot of free runs to the quarterback. So yeah, I wouldn't take him that high. Like that sounds bad. If I was a GM, I probably watched almost every game Trayvon Walker has ever played in college, and I wouldn't take him there. I would probably go another direction, and that sounds like you're being critical, but he was the 4th best defensive lineman on that line. I understand it was great. It was really good, but he was number 4. Like he was. So yeah, that's tough. That's tricky. I know he jumps out of the gym. He ran a really good 40. His 3-cone shuttle was apparently really, really quick for whatever that means. But I can't understand. He was in the bottom half of players on that defense. He was not in the top half of players. He was. That's not bad to say.
Yeah.
He wasn't as good as Nakobe Dean. He wasn't as good as you talk about the 3 defensive linemen that he wasn't as good as. He wasn't as good as and that puts him at 5, right? You could argue that Lewis Seen and Darian Kendrick were better than him, possibly even Quay Walker at times. So, like, this is a guy that's in the bottom half of that defense. How are we taking him number 1? Make it make sense for me because that's not computing.
I don't know. Like, it seems like this is a thing in the NFL draft every single year where all of us college football fans are like, shaking our head. How is Daniel Jones going 6th overall? That type of thing. Just the NFL teams seem to fall in love with a couple guys every year that don't make any sense. How did Deshaun Watson fall as far as he did?
Made no sense. None.
No sense at all. And any college football fan could have told you that. So who are the guys this year that you're seeing on mock drafts as a college football fan that you're like, that's too high, that's too low? Guys you really like. I didn't really give you much prep time on this or whatever, but
Yeah.
like, yeah,
So Evan Neal hasn't given up a sack in like 40 something games, I think.
yeah,
Like however many it was, wildly high.
yeah,
And playing in the SEC, getting everyone's best shot every week, didn't give up a sack. That's a guy that justified. Like he justified where he's getting drafted for me.
yeah,
None of the quarterbacks are first. None of them. That's
yeah,
not bad. That's not bad to say. They're all massively overrated. Like Malik Willis, people are talking about him going in the top 10. He might go in the top 10. He didn't throw a touchdown against Division I competition. He played 2 games against them, didn't throw 1 touchdown. And we're going to be like, well, but against NFL competition, that's going to be different. So you're going to have to spare me with some of that. There's a lot of that I'm not understanding. And it does. I think it makes me mad almost every April. Kind of like you said, Deshaun Watson was the prime example. We all knew that he should have been the number 1 overall pick. Anyone that watched college knew that he was top 5 minimum. Everyone knew that. And we fooled ourselves into thinking that, well, but like we're going to be able to take this guy. And then like, no, like he was the right pick. He should have been up higher. We all knew it. And I think it's happening again this year. Aiden Hutchinson got steamrolled by Georgia. Steamrolled.
yeah,
Like he was not a difference maker in that game. Georgia's tackles, they're good. They're NFL tackles, but they're not Evan Neal. Like they're not going in the first round. These guys are going 3rd, 4th round.
yeah,
Completely neutralized him. So that's tough to watch. That is tough to watch on a game for all the marbles right there that means so much, and you just get dominated by someone that's less talented than you. That's tricky for me. And yeah, I don't think I'd take him that high. I really don't. I'd probably go higher, maybe with the tackle from Alabama, a little lower with the edges from Georgia and Michigan.
What about Kayvon Thibodeau? How would you fit them in comparison to Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson?
To like, if he even wants to play,
Fair.
like whether he even cares. Like,
ooh, harsh
for me. No. He's been harsh. Like, that's not. Didn't deserve that. I wouldn't take anyone like that in the top 10.
Okay.
I wouldn't. If I want to draft someone in the top 10, I at least want to make sure that I'm getting their absolute best shot. Like I have all their attention and all their effort, and it's without question. These guys not only need to be studs, they also need to be leaders and set the tone, because that's what's going to be asked of them in the locker room years from now. Like you're drafting your future like faces of the program, and you don't want someone that's half in, half out.
Yeah.
For me, I wouldn't take him that high. That's probably why he's sliding a little bit. If as far as a name that's sliding down that I'm mad that shouldn't be sliding down, it's Nakobe Dean. I, for the life of me, cannot understand. Like he may not go in the first round, and that is baffling. That is baffling. It makes no sense to me. He was only the best player on the best defense we've ever seen in college football. How is he not a first rounder? And I can't. Apparently, it's like his arms are like a little bit too short or something. And it's like, what? Like he can't tackle apparently, like because his arms are too short, and his range is supposedly in question. Again, I've watched every game he's ever played. Like he has unbelievable range from sideline to sideline. Some of the best in the country.
Yeah.
And he's not even going to be a first rounder. And like he's going to be a pro for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like he just is.
I'm glad you touched on the quarterbacks too. I think I can see some of these guys panning out.
Yeah.
But there is no way I would stake anything on it. Like I'm looking at a mock draft right now that has Kenny Pickett at 6, Malik Willis at 8, and then the next 3 guys, Derek Stingley, Garrett Wilson, and Kyle Hamilton. Like those could end up being the 3 best players in the draft.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. There's a I think scouts do this a little bit just to feel like they're smarter than everyone else, but like they'll kind of drop a guy that like, oh, everyone else really likes him, and so like we'll kind of drop him, and then like, but you gotta they're always trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes. I feel they're always looking for like the guy with the big arm from like Wyoming, or I guess Malik Willis was from Liberty, right?
Yeah.
Like sort of find like the unproven diamond in the rough type, and that's how they make their money. But they continually gloss over the guys that we know are going to be stars. Like the Deshaun Watson was he had proven it too much. I think he had just proven it too much, and they had seen how good he could be, and they're like, well, that's his ceiling, like we've seen that. So it's kind of a joke in some ways that these quarterbacks are going this high. I think it's simply because of the market. I think like so many NFL are desperate for quarterbacks,
Yeah.
You cannot convince me that Kenny Pickett is anywhere near the level of Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, coming out of college. It's not even the same thing.
No. Yeah, and I think if I was the Panthers or the Falcons, like I would look at next year's class and see Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and be like, why do I want to be good this year?
Right.
Like, let's just wait. If you're in the top 10 right now, most likely you will be in the top 10 next year too. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm also in this mock draft I was just talking about. It's Kyle Hamilton at 11. And I just want to say this as a Notre Dame fan. I realize I'm biased. I watched Harrison Smith for 4 years. He was a first-round pick and has been like a 5-time Pro Bowler or something. Kyle Hamilton is a better safety than Harrison Smith. I'm just going to come out and say it. Kyle Hamilton is the best safety I've seen in college. If I was betting $100 on any one of these players being a good pro, I'd put it on Kyle Hamilton. I don't care that he didn't run the fastest 40 time. The guy is 6'4", and his arms are 9 feet long. I mean, Falcons, go ahead and draft him, the Atlanta kid. And then you'll probably be able to sign him for decades because he's from Atlanta and will want to play for you. Or you can draft Malik Willis and 3 years later regret it. I'm just saying.
There's so here's my question. We've seen people. I don't know if you've seen. His name's Trent McDuffie.
Yeah,
the cornerback from Washington.
Yes,
he's apparently vaulted himself up into the top 10. Kind of. Some people have him going ahead of Derek Stingley. Some going behind. Like stuff like that. Like I'm just not sure about. Like I'm really not sure about because Stingley has been so good. Like when he in 2019 he was, top 2-3 material, like top 5 draft pick. That's tough when you see, like you mentioned, Garrett Wilson, Derek Stingley. I think Jameson Williams, that's another name. Like you want some of these guys. You want these guys on your team. You want guys on your team that can win. And this frustrates me with the Falcons. I'm a Falcons fan in the NFL. I don't care about them, but they're always trying to draft someone from like San Francisco State or something. And you have like a Georgia kid or an Alabama kid sitting there. And it's like, well, I already know go take him. We know he's good. Why don't you just go draft a whole bunch of, okay, if I'm a GM of the Lions, say I'm the general manager of the Detroit Lions, why wouldn't I go draft 6 guys from the University of Alabama? Like they're not going to bust very much. They're not. Like you're going to hit a couple of home runs and you're going to have the rest of them that are just going to be really, really good players and starters for your team. And they're going to bring in a culture of winning. They actually know how to win. Instead, everyone goes and drafts their team from all, 4 corners of the earth and tries to piece together a unit. Like Georgia's defense, someone should go out and try to draft all the players from Georgia's defense, like later rounds, like if you can, like get all of them, just like accumulate all of them and try to bring some of that chemistry to your new team. Like that's what I think. Like, what do you have to lose if you're the Detroit Lions?
And I think there are some GMs that clearly know what they're doing and are able to, I don't know what the correct term is, but they're able to find those gems because they are good at. Okay, so for example, I'm a Colts fan. Chris Ballard, a few years ago, in the second round, he drafts this guy named Darius Leonard from South Carolina State that I've never heard of in my life, and the guy just turns into an All-Pro immediately. And if you're that good at your job, you can get away with that type of thing. If you're the GM of one of these teams that's constantly in the top 10, I agree with you 100%. Like, pick the best player from the best three schools for a little bit. Just like
Yeah.
the guys
Yeah.
that showed out on the national stage, go ahead and give them a shot. Like there might be a guy from roast beef state that'll go several picks later that will end up being better. But you need to raise the floor, and then you can worry about the ceiling. It's kind of the way I look at it. Raise the floor first.
Completely agree. I think there's an epidemic of general managers trying to be smarter than the room.
Yes.
And trying to prove that like we actually know more than everyone else. When in reality you can either play or you can't. And you will find some Darius Leonards in all of it. But your hit rate is going to be much higher if you draft Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State every year. It's just it's going to be, I'm serious. It's going to be much higher. And if you're a bad franchise, you need a higher floor. Go get those guys. Like that's maybe my point in all of it. And if Nakobe Dean falls out of the first round and the Jaguars somehow manage to pass on him twice, like they deserve everything that's coming to them. They deserve everything that's coming to them because they just lost a middle linebacker and they don't really have anyone that's going to step in to replace him. That's their own fault. That's their own fault. And they deserve it. And
by the way, in that same draft that Chris Ballard got Darius Leonard, in the first round, they went ahead and drafted Quentin Nelson, who was the most, who's from Notre Dame and literally had highlight videos as an offensive guard on Twitter. Like that was a thing. And so, he found the gem in the rough, whatever the phrase is. I'm just remembering it. In the second round, he went ahead and found that guy. In the first round, he just took the best player available. There's nothing wrong with that.
Quentin Nelson might have been the best player in that draft, and he was the best guard prospect that we've had in 10 years. He was a slam dunk, and we all knew it.
Exactly. Yeah, just don't screw up your job. Take good players. Oh man! All right.
It's okay for college football fans to be mad at GMs. That's okay. I don't care about the NFL as much as I do college. I know you don't either. Probably most of the people listening to the podcast don't. But you still keep up with it, and it really kind of chaps me when they, when there's guys that we know can play, and we've seen them play on the big stage for weeks, and you're like, well, but this guy from way over here, we like his upside. It's like, oh, do you like his upside? I'd rather have the guy that is going to be a pro for 10 years for sure. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
I'm sorry. I don't need to get mad. It's just local rant. Just this is from the peanut gallery, I guess. But just watch who drops out of the first round and watch who actually gets some of these players in the top of the second round. Those are teams that are going to be doing well 2, 3, 4 years from now. I think you can find a lot of really good talent in the second round this year, especially at receiver, some of those places, receiver and even some of it's a fairly deep corner draft too. So you can find some players that can really help you in those second, third rounds.
Yeah. The bottom line is 0 college football fans were surprised that Deshaun Watson turned into a good quarterback, and 0 college football fans were surprised that Daniel Jones has done nothing in the NFL. Sometimes it's that simple. Ask the college football fans who's good. Oh my goodness. All right. Anything else before we? Sorry, what?
Daniel Jones was mentored by David Cutcliffe, right? And that just made him a little extra special.
Yeah, and he looked kind of like Eli.
Yeah, he did. It kind of had the all shucks feel to him a little bit, Yeah, it's time for them to move on. They need a new quarterback. Maybe next year.
Maybe they'll draft Kenny Pickett this year or something. Anyway,
any chance that any of these quarterbacks turn out to be franchise quarterbacks, and if so, which one has the highest chance?
There's definitely a chance. I think Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, just because of the physical tools, Sam Howell. I think those 3, they have an outside shot. They might each have a 20% chance, which is not nothing. So they all have a better chance probably. Those 3, I think, probably all have a better chance than Daniel Jones did.
For me, I think Matt Corral has the highest.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Of anyone, and to be a stud, like an NFL franchise quarterback, If you're gonna, you can probably get him in second, third round. Probably, I haven't seen much of him going in the first round. You can probably get him second or third round. If you do want, if you have to have a quarterback, that's probably who I'd throw the dice on. I think would probably be him, because you probably get him like a little discounted. But yeah, not convinced at all about any of these quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, and this might bite me in the butt, but I am completely out on Desmond Ridder as an NFL quarterback.
Did he not beat you bad enough in
Well,
October?
that's fair. I'm just like, can you actually look me in the eye and tell me you think that he deserves to go in the first round?
No chance. No chance.
And he probably will, because that's the NFL. Anyway. He might. I don't know.
Show bet? Should we do a show bet?
No, I don't know that much about it. I don't want to put any money on that. But anyway, anything else before we wrap this episode up?
That's it for me.
All right, same for me. Everyone, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week. Try to not tear your hair out when you watch NFL Draft, and God bless you all.